most beneficent, most merciful. All the praise is due to Allah. We praise Him, we seek His aid, and we ask for His forgiveness. Dear students, I would like to welcome you in my first official lecture about Introduction to Linguistics. Today we will start our chapter which talks about animals and human language, and here of course we have some items to be discussed. First, the communication. Second, properties of a human language. Displacement, arbitrary, productivity or creativity, cultural transmission. Of course, before we start, we have to understand the meaning or the definition of communication. What does communication mean? So, first, we should also distinguish between communicative signals and informative signals. Of course, there is a big difference between these two terms. So, the first one is informative signals. Now, if someone is listening to you, he or she may be informed about you through a number of signals that you have not intentionally sent. For example, he may or she may note that you have a cold. Even if you did not say that I have a cold, once you sneeze, the other person will understand that you have a cold by sneezing. So this kind of signal is called as informative signal. One more example is that if you shift around in your seat, you are not comfortable and you are shifting around, you cannot sit. So this message or this signal is called as informative signal. The other person will understand that you are not at ease. One more example, that if you are not organized, people may judge that you are disorganized if, for example, you did not match socks. Of course, you did not inform them, right? But they understand that you are disorganized. How? Because this is a kind of informative signals, something you send without telling the other person that I have this or that. This is regarding the informative signals. Now, the other type is communicative signals. And of course here, when we say communicative signals, it means that we communicate. We use something. So, when you use language to tell, for example, this person or that person, that I'm one of the applicants for the vacant position of senior brain surgeon at the hospital, you are normally considered to be intentionally communicating something. When you say something, means you intentionally communicate something to a person. So, he does not understand that you are an applicant. Why? Because you are telling him. How? By using a language. So, the communicative signal is using a language to tell someone something. And that is, of course, you normally consider to be intentionally communicating something. Now, one more example about informative signals. Now, of course, the blackbird is not normally taken to be communicating anything by having black feathers. Definitely, the blackbird, it does not say that I'm a black bird, having black feathers. This kind of message or this kind of signal is called as informative signal. Why? Because once you see a blackbird, definitely you will come to know that it has black feathers. But this signal can be changed into communicative signal if there is a loud squawking produced by the bird. So it is considered to be sending a communicative signal with the loud squawking produced when a cat appears on the scene. So if a bird sees a cat, definitely it will start squawking, making noise, producing a noise, telling that there is a cat. So this kind of message, this kind of signal is called as communicative signal. Now we will shift to the properties of human language. We will start with the first one, displacement. Now, when your pet cat comes home and stands at your feet calling, definitely a cat says meow. Now, if this cat says meow, you are likely to understand this signal or this message as relating to that time and place. The time and place when the cat says meow, the present time. Now, if you ask your cat where it has been and what it was up to, you will also probably get the same meow response, the same sound. Again, that sound is in the present. Now, animal communication seems to be designed exclusively for this moment, the present moment, here and now. It cannot be used to relate events that are far removed in time and place. If you ask your cat, your pet cat, about something in the future, definitely it will not be able to answer except giving you the same sound, meow. If you tell your cat, your pet cat, about something happened yesterday, again, it will give you the same sound which a cat produces, meow. Now, this is totally different than humans. Humans can refer to past and future time. This property of human language is called displacement. This property of a human is called as displacement. Why? Because humans can refer to past and future time. It allows language users to talk about things and events not present in the immediate environment. Displacement also allows us to talk about things and places. For example, we can talk about something even if it does not exist, about Superman. Superman, as a character, does not exist. But as human, we can talk. But animals cannot. And for example, we can talk about angels. We can talk about heavens. Ogre. Even ogre does not exist, but as a human, we can talk. So this kind of property is called as displacement, even if those existence we cannot even be sure of, but we can talk about. The second property is called as arbitrary. Of course, there is no natural connection between a linguistic form and its meaning. There is no natural connection between a linguistic form and its meaning. The connection here is quite arbitrary. We cannot just look, this is an example, we cannot just look at the Arabic word, for example, let us say as a word, kalb or kitab, whatever, and from its shape, for example, determine that it has a natural and obvious meaning any more than we can with its English translation form, dog. So there is no relation here between the word, the linguistic or a linguistic form, and the meaning. So the linguistic form has no natural or iconic, has no relationship with that hairy four-legged barking object out in the word. This aspect of the relationship between linguistic signs and objects in the word is described as arbitrary or arbitrariness. Productivity or creativity. Now, we all know that humans are continually creating new expressions. As humans, we can express, we can use new terms, new expressions by manipulating our linguistic resources to describe new objects and situations. This property is described as productivity. We produce, we create, and essentially means that the potential number of vocal expressions in any human language is indefinite. There is no limit for the vocal expressions. Vocal expressions, we can manipulate them, depends upon the new objects and situations. The communication system of other creatures are not like that. Animals, they are not, or they cannot manipulate. They know, or they have some signals, they can send some messages, but they cannot manipulate these messages. Cicadas, for example, it is a kind of insect. Cicadas have 4 signals to choose. This is an insect which has 4 signals to choose between. But, for example, an African or vervet monkeys have 36 vocal calls. And these calls, we have a huge number of calls here, vocal calls, about 36. These calls cannot be improved, cannot be manipulated. Now, it is not possible for creatures to produce new signals to communicate. The honeybee normally able to communicate the location of the nectar source to other bees. But here, a honeybee will fail to do so if the location is really new. The bees cannot manipulate its communication system to create a new signal or a new message, including vertical distance. Of course, there is one experiment which shows that a honeybee or honeybees cannot manipulate their signals or messages. This experiment, or in this experiment, they brought the hive and put it under or a foot of the radio tower, and they also put a food source at the top of the radio tower. Then after that, they brought 10 or 20 bees and let them taste the delicious taste of the food source. Then they released them. Bees started to fly around, trying to give a message and signals to other bees, trying to find out the hive, to call other bees to get the food source. But they failed. Why? Because bees do not have the productivity. They have only something called as horizontal distance. Bees move in a horizontal. They make dances in a horizontal distance. But unfortunately, bees cannot manipulate if you change the place of the hive vertically. The next property of human language is cultural transmission. The process whereby a language is passed on from one generation to next is described as cultural transition. Of course, we inherit physical features or physical characteristics such as brown eyes, dark hair from our parents, but we do not inherit their language. We acquire a language in a culture with other speakers and not from parental genes. Again here, one more experiment. An infant born to Korean parents in Korea, but adopted and brought up from birth by English speakers in the United States, will have physical characteristics, will have physical features inherited from his or her natural parents, but will speak English and will also have an American accent, totally different than Korean. So in this way, we do not inherit language. We inherit physical features, physical characteristics, but of course, language can be acquired in a cultural with other speakers. Now, I have prepared 4 questions here just to summarize and keep you in touch with the subject. Question number 1, what is the difference between formative and communicative signals? Now think and try to remember the difference between formative and communicative signals. Yes? Now, here is the answer. Just to remind you that informative signals, someone may be informed about you through a number of signals that you have not intentionally sent. And communicative signals, you are normally considered to be intentionally communicating something to someone. Question number 2. Now, is it true that animals can refer to past and future time when they communicate? Now think. These two are important. Past and future time. So, can animals refer to past and future time? Yes, the answer of course is no. This kind of property is only for humans, not for animals. Animals cannot refer to past and future. They have only one time, that is here and now, the present. Question number 3. Now, is it true that there is no natural connection between a linguistic form and its meaning? Try to remember. Yes, the answer is, of course, yes, it is true. There is no natural connection between a linguistic form and its meaning. Question number 4. Is it true that humans cannot create new expressions to describe new objects and situations? Yes, the answer, of course, is no, because humans humans have the property of creativity or productivity. Now, I'll move to the sounds of language. This chapter is very interesting. It is full of terms. You have to keep repeating and learning by heart the following terms. they're a little bit complicated because some terms are taken and derived from Greek language. Anyhow, let us start with the definition, phonetics. Now, imagine that you are passing next to a restaurant where you see a sign which shows this phrase, new S-E-A-G-H. Now, this could be a new word for you, and you are very curious to know what is the meaning of this new S-E-A-G-H. Of course, here you will enter the restaurant and ask the manager, what do you mean by this new word, English word? And the answer comes from the manager that it means a new chef. How comes that a manager wrote a new chef instead, or made some spelling mistakes? This is the correct one, chef, and he wrote chef. Why? Because the manager does not have a phonetic background or phonetics background. Now let us come to this S-E-A-G-H. Why did the manager wrote S-E-A-G-H? It's very simple. What he knows is the word sure. Now this word starts with sh. Yes, of course, it is S, an S, letter S, but we pronounce it as sh. So he wrote sh for sh. So he used this sound to write sh. And for EA, he knows a word like, for example, EA, a word which has EA, like, for example, dead. So he used it. And then finally, the E, the GH from laugh. So he thought that this GH, or sorry, cuff is more accurate. Cuff is more accurate. So instead of writing a new chef, cuff, the GH can be produced as f. So that's why he wrote this word, because he doesn't know the spelling of chef. Now the sounds of spoken English do not match up with letters of written English. And this is, of course, it's a fact, because sometimes when you, for example, write a word like knife, we use K. So letters are totally different than the spoken or of the spoken sounds. We write, for example, night. We have N-I-G-H-T. So we write N-I-G-H-T, but we say night. It could be N-I-T. So letters are totally different than sounds. Whatever we write as letters are different and do not match up with the spoken English. Now let us come to the definition of phonetics. In fact, phonetics as a word comes from Greek, which means, or which has two parts. We have phon and tek. Phon which means a sound or a voice, and tic. Tic means pertaining to, relating to, pertaining to sound, pertaining to voice, or relating to voice, relating to sound. So originally it is from Greek language. And the meaning of phonetics is the general study of the characteristics of speech sounds. We deal with sounds, sound that we produce, sounds that we speak. And here we have three phonetics, three types of phonetics. We have articulatory phonetics, we have also acoustic phonetics, and auditory phonetics. But our main interest is only the articulatory phonetics, which means the study of how speech sounds are made. When we speak, we will study the articulatory phonetics to know how speech sounds are made. Before we start to know how sounds are made, let us just know that we have two kinds of sounds. The first one is called as voiced. Voiced. The second one, number two, is called as voiceless. Now, what is the difference here between voiced and voiceless? What exactly happened? Now, this image shows an organ which is called as larynx, which contains vocal cords. Here we have this shape here. So this vocal cords folds open, spread and close. Now, when the vocal cords are spread apart, open, the air from the lungs passes between them unimpeded. For example, try to pronounce this sound, z, z, or we have also v, v. What exactly happened here? This vocal cord are spread apart. It also let the air from the lung passes. So, this is one. Number two, how to judge, how to know that this sound is voiced. In a very simple way, if you just keep your finger, put your finger on your throat, touch your throat, and try to pronounce some sounds, like as I said, zzz, zzz. Touch your throat and say v, v. You feel vibration. This vibration indicates that this particular sound is voiced. I repeat again. If you touch your throat by putting your fingers, touch it, and try to pronounce, try to speak out sounds like z, v. You can feel the vibration here in your throat. And this vibration indicates that the sound is voiced. From the vibration, we can know that the sound is voiced. But when the vocal cords are drawn together in this way, very close, very close. Now here, the air from the lungs repeatedly pushes them apart as it passes through. Like, for example, when we say now, this kind of sound is called as voiceless. Why? Because it has no vibration. If you touch your throat, put your hand again here on your throat and try to say you do not feel the vibration, which means that the sound is voiceless. So if there is a vibration, it means that the sound is voiced, this kind of vibration. But if there is no vibration here, the sound is voiceless. Let me just go to the next slide. Now, here we have the place of articulation. We have bilabials, we have Libya Dentals, we have dentals, alveolars, palatals, velars, and glottals. As I said, terms are a little bit difficult, but what you need is to practice to become familiar with these terms, and most of these terms are taken from Greek language. Now, here we have a diagram, an image, which shows the two cavities. We have the oral cavity. This cavity is called as oral cavity, and the second cavity is called as nasal cavity. We have two cavities, which air goes out of these two to produce sounds. We have some articulators, and these articulators are responsible to produce sounds and symbols. For example, we have lips. We have lips. This is the first, and this is the second, the upper and the lower. The upper lip and the lower lip. Again, lips are responsible and are articulators of some sounds. We have also teeth, the upper teeth and the lower teeth. Again, they are also responsible to produce sounds. And here we do not forget the tongue. The tongue is also responsible, an active articulator, which is responsible to produce sounds. And the tongue is also divided into parts. We will talk later about the parts, divisions of the tongue. Here we have velium. Velium is responsible to block, to stop the air goes out of the nasal cavity, or also to block the air goes out of the oral cavity. This part is called as pharynx, and finally this part is called as larynx. So all these places are responsible to produce sounds. We will start with the first one, that is bilabials. The term bilabial again comes from Greek language. Bi means two. Bi means two. Labial means pertaining to lips. Labio from a Greek, which means a lip. Al, relating to, pertaining to. So bilabial or bilabials as a term means pertaining, relating to two lips. Pertaining to two lips. It means that the sound, here, just show you. that the sound will be produced by the help of these two lips, the upper and the lower. Now, these are sounds formed using both upper and lower lips. The first sounds, for example, in the words pat, pa. The second one is bat. The first letter is ba. And again, in mat, ma. We have three sounds here, pa, ba, and ma. Remember that I deal with sounds. Of course, not letters. If these are letters, I will say B, P, M. But because they are sounds, I'm saying P, B, M. So these sounds are all bilabials. They are represented by symbols P. P, which is voiceless. Why it is voiceless? Because if you try to pronounce P, P, P as a sound, you do not feel the vibration. So we consider P, the sound P, as voiceless sound because it has no vibration. But B, M, these two sounds are voiced, and we will talk in more details why they are voiced. Okay, you may ask, okay, doctor, there is no vibration when we pronounce B. I do agree with you that there is no vibration, but we have something else. We will talk about it later. As a sound, it is a nasal sound, and also it is considered as a voiced sound. The second place of the articulation is called as Libya Dental. Now, these are sounds formed with the upper teeth and the lower lip. The upper teeth and the lower lip. I'll show you here. The upper teeth, this part, and the lower lip, this part. One is active and the other one is passive. Of course, the active articulators are all from here. The tongue is called as active articulator. Lower teeth, again, active, and the lower lip is called as an active articulator. Why? Because they move while pronouncing a sound, while other organs, the upper teeth, upper lip, the alveolar ridge, here this part, and the roof of the mouth, these are all called as passive articulators. Now, back to the slide. Libya Dentals, these are sounds formed with the upper teeth, as I said, and the lower lip. Now, the first sounds in the words like fat. If you try to pronounce, if you try to produce, you can feel that your upper teeth is almost touching your lower lip. And again, fat, vat, you can feel the upper teeth here, the upper teeth and the lower lip while producing, while speaking out or v. And the final sounds in the words like safe and save, again, These two sounds are called as Libya Dentals. Why? Because the upper teeth and the lower lip, these two are responsible to produce these two sounds, and the upper teeth is the passive articulator and the lower lip is the passive because it moves. They are represented by the symbols. This is a sound symbol, which is voiceless. Again, back to voiceless. There is no vibration, so this sound is considered to be a voiceless sound. And of course, you can feel the vibration here, a very high vibration. So this sound is a voiced sound. Now, these two words, like cough and photo. Now, if we just compare these two with fat and vat, we will find that we have only one sound, or let us say one letter F, which represents the sound F. But here we have GH. These two sounds are also pronounced as F. There is no difference here. Again, F, photo, PH. These two sounds are also pronounced as F. So we deal with sounds, of course, not letters. If I say that these are letters, it's GH, and here it's PH. But no, these two are called as Libya Dentals because these two are pronounced as F, the sound F. Next is dentals. Now, these are sounds formed with the tongue tip behind the upper front teeth. We have the tongue, the tip of the tongue, and the upper front teeth. The tip of the tongue with the upper front teeth. Now, we have two organs here. The active is the tongue, and the passive is the upper teeth, which are responsible to produce the dental sounds. Now, these are sounds formed with the tongue tip of the tongue behind the upper front teeth. The initial sound of, for example, thin, thin. These two sounds, or these two letters, TH, are pronounced as tip of the tongue behind the upper front teeth. You have to say, you have to make your tongue, the tip of the tongue, touches the upper front teeth to produce thin. And the final sound of path are both voiceless. So these sounds are voiceless. They do not make vibration, so that's why they are voiceless dental sounds. Now, the simple use for this sound is, this is the simple which represents this sound. We write TH for, and for again bath, we write also TH. But the sound is, and the symbol is. Now, the voice dental is represented by the symbol th. We have th and th. See the difference here? What you need is to practice. Try to pronounce these two words. For example, we have here thin. This is the symbol. And we have the. And this is the symbol. They are totally different. What you need is to practice, to know that this is written in this way, and is written in again, this way, totally different way. Again, we have some more examples. The, there, then, and thus. So these th, 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 the sound is the. But here, this th and this th are pronounced as th. So there is a big difference between pronouncing these two sounds, and these sounds are called as dentals. Why? Because the tip of the tongue is responsible or touches the upper front teeth, the passive articulator, which is the tongue. The tip of the tongue is the active articulator. Next is alveolars. These are sounds formed with the front part of the tongue. It is not the whole tongue. It's only the front part of the tongue, not the back part, the front part of the tongue. On the alveolar ridge, I'll show you the alveolar ridge here. Back to the image here. We can see that this part, which is immediately behind the upper teeth, this part is called as alveolar ridge, a hard part, exactly behind your upper teeth. This area is called as alveolar ridge. Now, alveolars, these are sounds formed with the front part of the tongue on the alveolar ridge. The initial sounds in, for example, t, t, top. When you pronounce t, you can feel that the front part of the tongue touches the area which is behind the upper front teeth, alveolar ridge. That area is called as alveolar ridge. T, t. Again, d, t, d. These sounds are called as alveolars. Why? Because the front part of the tongue touches an area behind the upper front teeth. That's why these two sounds are called as alveolars. I have some more examples. S, s, as in sit, z, as in zoo, and n, n, not. These all sounds are called, these sounds are called as alveolars. Why? Because the front part of the tongue touches the area which is behind the front upper teeth, which is called as alveolar ridge. Now, the symbols for these sounds are very easy to remember. For t, this is the symbol. Again, it's almost the same. T, t, d, d, s, s, z, z, n, n. These are the sounds, or symbols of the sounds. Of these 5 sounds, 5 symbols, we have t and s. These 2 sounds are called as voiceless. Come on, try to practice. Say t. You feel no vibration here, right? Because these 2 sounds, once they make no vibration, if there is no vibration, it means that these sounds are voiceless. T, s. So these sounds are called as voiceless alveolars. But whereas d, z, n are voiced. Why? Because there is a vibration and we will come to know about something which is called as plosives, stops like d. So this kind of stop, this kind of blockage is considered as the sound is considered as a voice sound. So t, s are voiceless sounds, while d, z, n are voiced. Other alveolars are the l, the sound l, as in lap, l, l. We say l. This is again alveolar sound. And one more example is r, l, r, l, r. Now these two sounds are called as also alveolars. Why? Because the front part of the tongue and the alveolar ridge are responsible to produce these sounds. Next is palatals. Again, this is a name of a place of articulation, where sounds are produced. Now these sounds formed with the tongue and the hard palate. The tongue and the hard palate. Let me just show you the hard palate. Of course, this is the tongue. The hard palate, this is the hard palate, which is behind the alveolar ridge and before the velum. So this part is called as palate or palatal. Now palatals are sounds formed with the tongue and the hard palate. The initial sounds in the words shot and child. Sh, sh, shot, and sh and ch, child, which are both voiceless. We have sh and ch. Sh, shot, ch, child, children, chair. These two sounds are voiceless. The ch sound or sh sound is represented by this symbol. This symbol is pronounced as sh, sh, shot. And the ch sound is represented as in ch, child, chair, ch, chapter, ch, change. Again, this is another symbol. The word shoe brush. Now, look to this word here, shoe brush. This word begins and ends with the voiceless palatal sound. It starts with sh and again ends in sh. These sounds are voiceless palatal sounds. And the word church begins and ends also with the other voiceless palatal sound. Ch, ch, ch. We have ch, church, church. So the symbol of this ch or ch is ch, written between these two brackets. And for child, this is the symbol. We have two different voiceless sounds, palatal sounds. We have sh and we have ch. We have sh for shoes, sh for shot, sh for brush, sh, and ch for church. We have ch for church. Now, the sound j, such as pleasure, treasure. This is a symbol of this sound. Let us say, as a letter, it's S, but we do not say S. We pronounce it as J. Pleasure, treasure, measure. So this sound is a voiced sound, and also it is a palatal sound. The other voiced palatal is a sound which is also similar to J, but we add D, like when we say J, gym, jock. Here we have pleasure and we have J. J, J. We have J, J for jock, for gym. But pleasure, we say J. Pleasure, we say J. Now, the sound Y is also voiced palatal as in yet. We have about here, let us just summarize the sounds here. We have sh, ch. We have also j, pleasure, and j for gym. The next place of articulation is velars, sounds produced with the back of the tongue against the velium. Let me just show you the velium. This part is called as velium. Velium part, an organ which is called as velium. Now, sounds produced with the back of the tongue against the velium are called velars. The sound k, as in cook. We have two sounds here, the first and the last. Cook begins with k, velar sound, and also cook ends with k, a velar sound. K is a voiceless sound. It has no vibration. The sound g, as in go, it is a voice sound. It is a voiced sound. So, velars are sounds that are produced with the back of the tongue against the velum. And this kind of sounds are called as velars, like k, g, and the nasal sound ing. Ing, this is the symbol of the sound ing. This sound is a nasal sound. For example, as in bang. So the last G as a letter is pronounced, is produced, is spoken as ing. It's not like go, g. It's ing. The last place of articulation is called as glottals. Now, there is one sound in this group, in this category, that is produced without the active use of the tongue and other parts of the mouth. We have only one sound here without any help of any articulators. It is also a voiceless sound, which is, it is only one sound. We have only one glottal sound. It is as in house, as in horse, as in home, as in hope. It's only one sound. It's only one sound. Let me just go back to the slides just to summarize the sounds. The place of articulation, we started with the bilabials, then Libya Dentals, dentals, alveolars, palatals, velars, and glottals. Now, in bilabials, we say that these sounds are formed by using both upper and lower lips. We have two articulators. The lower lip is called as active articulator, and the upper lip is called as passive articulator. Now, sounds like p, B, M. These are called as bilateral.